Hi.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our inaugural episode of Book Club Snug. Hey, it's the Library Love Fest marketing team at HarperCollins Publishers, and we can't help ourselves. We just like to start new programs. And plus, we like the sound of the words Book Club Snug. I'm Virginia Stanley, whom I join by.
Hi, it's Lainey Mays.
I'm Grace Caternolo. Hello.
Hello, hello. And we are really excited to launch this today. Book Club Snug, a book program about books that are perfect for book clubs. We have two authors on today joining us from their homes to talk about their books, which are perfect books for book clubs. Or if you're not in a book club, they're just perfect anyway because we all love them. So let's bring them on. Catherine Newman and Laura Zigman, take off your cameras. Let's see you. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, we're so excited to do this. Thank you so much for being part of this today. This is fun.
Thank you for having us.
You know, we're big fans of these authors, and their books are so wonderful and so discussable. And we thought, what two better people to have on to launch this this new program about books that are perfect for book clubs? Do we want to show the book jackets of the books that we're going to be talking about today? So the people there, I'm sure there are many people here who've already read these books. Laura Zigman's book, Separation Anxiety. Look at those quotes. Such a wonderful book about a woman who carries her dog around in her baby sling to fill a void. Love. And reading group guide inside. Hello, we're halfway there. And Laura Zigman's other book, Small World. Love this book too. About two sisters who have to sort of reinvent themselves. Well, I'm not going to talk about it because Laura's going to. Okay, but aren't these covers wonderful? I love them. And Catherine Newman, We All Want Impossible Things. We were just saying, we cannot believe that this was your debut because this is just such an accomplished, beautiful book about friendship and grief and loss, but humor too, and knowing somebody almost better than you know yourself. What a beautiful book. And your forthcoming book is called Sandwich, which comes out in June or July. I should know this. I don't have it. July.
June. I think it's June.
And what's that?
June 18th, I believe.
Perfect book. Fabulous quote from Ann Patchett about a family who, well, again, I can't help myself. I have to stop talking about these books. That's your job. Write them and tell the world about them. So anyway, these are the books that we'll be talking about today. So let's bring the authors back on, do a quick intro, and then have you all talk about the books and why they lend themselves so well to discussion. They really do. So Catherine Newman has written numerous columns, articles, and canned bean recipes for magazines and newspapers. Her essays have been widely anthologized. She's the author of the novel, We All Want Impossible Things, as well as the memoir, Waiting for Birdie, and Catastrophic Happiness. She wrote the middle grade novel, One Mixed Up Night, and the best-selling kids' life skills books, How to Be a Person, and What Can I Say? She's the best websites, best blogs. You've got to go and check them out, Laura and Catherine. So your forthcoming book is this wonderful story about a family summer vacation full of secrets, lunch, and learning to let go. Love this quote from Ann Patchett on the cover. If you can't read it, I will. Sandwich is joy in book form. I laughed continuously, except for parts that made me cry. Catherine Newman does a miraculous job reminding us of all the wonder there is to be found in life. Catherine, how great is that quote? How great is this book?
So good. I know. I should start wearing a locket with just that like fold and fun.
But just love it. Just love it. Okay, now we'll do a quick intro of Laura as well, and then we will get to the juice of the books. Okay, so we have Laura Zigman, and who is the author of Separation Anxiety Animal Husbandry, Dating Big Bird, and Piece of Work. She's been a contributor to the New York Times and the Washington Post, was the recipient of a Yaddo residency, and she lives in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Let's see Laura's jackets. Please. Small World. That just came out January 2nd in paperback. So there were two things going on here. This book is now in paperback, as is Laura's previous book, Separation Anxiety. Catherine's book, We All Want Impossible Things, is available as a paperback, and Sandwich is coming out in the summer as a hardcover. There is no, hard and fast rule that only paperbacks can be selections for book clubs, because stories are the stories. Small World, wonderful reviews. Publishers Weekly gave it a star, calling it entrancing and saying that Zigman does a stellar job of creating well-rounded characters and satisfying ending, tops off her well-crafted painting to sisterhood. Readers will love this, and it is so true. We do. Washington Post said the novel is as poignant as it is funny, as thought-provoking as it is witty, and searingly relatable. Yes, all of those words. Hi, Laura. Is Laura on?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. I can't see you because my jacket is taking up space.
You pick.
Oh, you want me to start?
No.
Okay.
Listen, I just wanted to give a brief introduction. And Laura, Lainey and Grace and I are all fans of all of these books, as are librarians, because we've been to the American Library Association, talked about these books in their original form when they first came out. But now it's time to talk about book clubs and how all of these books lend themselves to great discussion. There are endless topics on which to touch and discuss. So Laura and Catherine, Laura, why don't you go first and talk a little bit about both of your books, and give it broad strokes, and then maybe talk about a few of the themes that are so chewy.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having us. You're the best library marketing department in the business, and I can say that because I used to work in the business, and I've also been published by almost every publisher in the business. So I know I speak for Catherine when I say we're enormously grateful for everything you do for all of our books. No one in the business does this, and we're thrilled to be able to talk to librarians and have this chance to talk about our books. And my career has been so strange. My first 4 novels were published. My last novel of that first batch was published in 2006, and then I had a 14-year gap. And so my work is always semi-autobiographical, a little bit more than semi-autobiographical. So a long time of a lot of life happened in the time between 2006 and 2020, when Separation Anxiety was published. And I was a very different person when I tried to write another novel. I had terrible writer's block. A lot had gone on in my family, a lot of illness, a lot of this, a lot of that, like most people. And so when I started to ghostwrite, and there was a point at which I was like, I just have to try one more time. I have to write one more novel. And all of my friends in publishing, I worked in publishing for 10 years, and I thought I have to do it soon because all my friends are going to start retiring and I will have no contacts anymore in the biz. But when I started Separation Anxiety, I really wanted it to be about, and similar to Catherine, it's like that point in middle age where you feel you have lost more than you've gained. You're at this point in your life where the sense of possibility and hope is diminished, and yet that's all we have, and we have to rekindle that feeling somehow. But when you get to your midlife point, all of us have lost so much, either our careers. I had a lot of loss. I lost my career, everything. And so I really wanted to write a very truthful, realistic story about what it feels like to be at that point. And I remember I sent it to my agent at the time. He's not my agent now, and I loved him, but I sent him the first 50 or 60 pages, and he's very funny. He's from Bayonne, New Jersey, and he's like, "Oh, I love it." He goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Does it get funny?" And that was, it did get funny, but I was like, yes, and it's also sad. And that's what I love about Catherine's book too, is it is so sad and so funny, and somehow I wanted to write the kind of book I wanted to read, which is why I blurbed Catherine's book, because I loved it so much, because it had the same notes that I was trying to deal with. But separation anxiety is about a couple who can't afford to get divorced. So they're living in the same house. And in her grief, to kind of like move forward in this part of her life, she wears her dog in a baby sling. And it's like a therapy animal to the extreme. And it's about marriage. It's about loss. She has a best friend who is dying. She has a young son. And so a lot of the stuff about marriage that, lots of people have issues with their marriages, and, it's real. And then Small World is about two adult sisters, both divorced, who move in together as adults. And all the requisite drama that happens when you get two siblings together who don't really know each other as well as they could, come together in midlife and live together in an apartment in Cambridge. And then, you think it's about the present day because they're in this apartment and they have these annoying neighbors upstairs, but really it's a time that they end up processing their childhood. And that's, funny, sad, savory, sweet. So that's my story.
Wow. Savory,
Wow.
sweet. I love that.
So good. I feel like I want to say everything you said. This is why we're like sisters separated at birth, because that is really your books, the kind of griefy comedy. I feel like that's how I would describe my books. And I think it's why I love your books so much. They're so real, that semi-autobiographical-ness of them. It makes them so real. All the feeling is real. It's like tearing through these really real relationships. And I love that. I love books that are relationship driven. That is so the way I love to read. So similar, my books are similar. They're, when you said sort of books about loss and ultimately about rekindling hope, I think, yeah, that's got to be what I'm writing without even knowing it. I think I'm writing the same style of book. So my books, I have your books, and I have my books. We All Want Impossible Things is about a woman in midlife, which has got to be, I'm sorry, the main book club demographic, but I really need to tell everyone else that. Also the main library patron demographic. But again, woman in midlife whose best friend is dying of cancer. It's also a semi-autobiographical book. And she is kind of getting blown apart by grief into this kind of boundaryless love for everyone in the world. So that's what the book's about. The friend is dying. The narrator is in love with the world and not always behaving like super appropriately. And if you go on Goodreads, I'm not recommending this, but there's a lot of people, all the 1-star reviews are like, she is such a piece of trash. I could not read a single other word. And, I get that. But that is not bad in a book group, right? We like the one person who thinks it's a really trashy book or a trashy character. Somebody said, hang on, I just slipped because I have such a visceral memory of this. I always feel like bad Goodreads reviews are a great launch pad for a book discussion. Like,
Brilliant.
somebody said the impossible thing for me was persisting beyond 3 chapters. The humor is forced and remarkable only for its complete inability to inspire so much as a smile. There was no indication that the book could move beyond intensely annoying and unfailingly dreadful. So that was a rare 1-star review that didn't accuse the narrator of being an inappropriate slut, which I really appreciated. Anyway, so that's that book. I don't have enough Goodreads reviews of Sandwich yet to have like some good 1-star zingers. But Sandwich is also So about loss and midlife, and in Sandwich, there's another middle-aged narrator who I know really well at this point as a character and person. And she's on vacation for a week on Cape Cod with her pretty grown children. They're in their 20s, and her quite elderly parents. So it's just a week of her kind of sandwiched between these generations on Cape Cod, having a lot of memories as one can on a recurring vacation, and sort of uncovering some family secrets along the way.
Can't wait.
Ah, bless you.
So good. Yeah, those were perfect sort of, just a broad strokes recap of what the books are. And on staying on Sandwich, what I love so many things about the book, but I think about the main character, the mom, who is occasionally looking back at when they would drag these kids, to the beach stand and juice and all that stuff, and people grow up, and so it's a completely different kind of a thing. A lovely thing is that they're all together. It's a really cool family, I think. But children become adults, and so you're not wiping their hands anymore, but you're sort of holding their hearts and being there for them in a completely different way. But I think what's so striking about all of these books, all four of these books, is the authenticity, I think, of the relationships, the sisters in Small World, the mother and the father in Sandwich, which is such a, everybody that goes away for a week or something, and it's not, and I also love that, back to Sandwich, it's not this like, Hamptons-y kind of a place where, who gets to go there? Like this was just some house that had plumbing issues. Like it's a very relatable story, because it's not, you're not othered. It's like, come on, watch us drag all this crap to the house year after year after year, and watch how things change. And oh yeah, the toilet's overflowing again. Like that is just so great. So I just, very relatable, very accessible, and inclusive, I think, of a wide readership, I think, for all of these books, because in Small World, you've got these sisters, Laura, who have, well, do you want to talk a little bit about the third sister and the relationship? Sure. And, because that's a big part of the story there, and how these two sisters are sort of like, dancing around this other sister.
Yeah, sure. So in Small World, these two sisters, there was a third sister, a middle sister named Eleanor, and Eleanor was born with severe cerebral palsy and died when she was 10. And it takes place, the flashback scenes take place in the early 70s, which was a really big time for advocating for people with disabilities. And there was a parents' movement, and so a lot of people, some people institutionalized their kids, and other people kept their kids at home with this sense of advocating for them for special ed. I mean, there was a time when there was no special education, that kind of thing. So in the story, the Eleanor lives at home, and the mother, Louise, is almost obsessed with her care and with her inclusion, ironically to the exclusion of the other two daughters, who are kind of pushed to the side. And we have a term for this now. It's called well child syndrome, which is really when, if you have a child with disabilities, or if you're a family that's lost a child, a lot of times the surviving or the well children are kind of ignored, and they have to be really well behaved, and they have to kind of carry the family because there's so much going on. So in my personal life, this was always a story I kind of wanted to write about, because I always felt like it was one of those, I feel like everyone has a story like this, where it's like, if you could just tell this story, people would understand why you're so weird, or why you are the way you are. And I grew up in a family that had lost a child. My parents' first daughter was born in, my sister was born in 1958. And not like the book, but in real life, I never really knew my sister. She died. I was 3 when she died. I have an older sister, Linda, who was 5, and Cheryl, who was born with a very rare bone disease, was institutionalized before I knew her, and I may have visited her a couple of times there outside Boston, an institution outside Boston. But unlike in the book, my sister Linda and I, it wasn't our loss. We didn't know her. She didn't live with us. She wasn't a pal, a playmate. But it was like growing up in a family where a bomb had gone off and you're there looking at the hole. And it was always the hole. It was always the ghost. And it was something we never really talked about that much. My father talked about it all the time, but we never talked about it as a family. And so in the book, it's very different where she's a part of the family, and and a lot of their life was revolving around Eleanor's care and trying to get attention from their mother, that kind of thing. So
Yeah. So heartbreaking, really.
yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people come out of the woodwork and write to me, and they have, I think I did an ALA thing, and I forget who one of the panelists reporters was, but she had a brother who was developmentally disabled. And so it's a thing, people, not everyone has this experience. And when you find other people, other people have grown up in similar things, it's comforting.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember you and I talking about this because of when the book was set and the services that were available at the time. I'd forgotten about this in my own life, but my mother and some of her friends used to help pattern a child, and which I don't know that they even do. I don't know that they do that anymore, but I was probably 5,
Yeah.
and she would bring me with her and I would watch them pattern this child. And I totally forgot about that until I read that part in the book.
Which is a kind of, it was a theory of physical therapy, where if you just moved the kid's limbs in a certain way, it would be like muscle memory. I don't think it ever really worked, but it was something that I saw too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about separation anxiety?
Yeah, I mean, separation anxiety, it started really, in my time of being terribly blocked and not writing. I wrote every now and then I was ghostwriting a lot. And I wrote this I started as a screenplay, which is for anyone who's a writer or anybody who, there's nothing is ever wasted, because even though I didn't have any success in the 14 years with my own work, I was still writing a little bit here and there. And I wrote a screenplay. It was kind of a road trip movie, and I couldn't sell it, of course, because I couldn't sell anything during that time. But later, in 2015, I think is when I started, I went back to it and I took a little piece of it. And I really took the marriage part from this road trip story. And I sort of seeded the new novel with this little scene that, so nothing really is wasted, because I ended up renting a shrink's office in Harvard Square. I needed some office space, but I couldn't afford it. So I of course went to Craigslist and all the creepy ads there, and I found, oh, you can rent a shrink's office. How gross and creepy. I'm so in. I love that stuff. And I rented it by the hour. Super gross, but not really. Just sounds gross, but it wasn't. And I thought I almost had a novel from the way the shrink, who I met once, was so controlling. Don't sit in this chair. You can only sit here. Don't touch that. I thought, oh, that's a novel. But anyway, I was working on this. And so I had a few hours a week where I would go there. I had like part of Sunday and Monday. And it took a while. It took almost 3 years to write. But it was so meaningful. And I didn't even care at the time. Honestly, I was like, I don't even care if this ever sells. I just had to get it out. I had to just write it again. Because I just thought, I can't believe I'm never going to write another novel. And now, after that, my writer's block really kind of went away-ish. And, to have had Small World come out, and I've just finished another one. It's like, it's a gift.
Wow, that's fantastic.
My ear just perked up a little bit. I heard what you
I
said
think everyone did.
there. Okay, we'll hear more.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
Catherine, do you want to talk just a little bit about We All Want Impossible Things? And then I think we want to make sure that you all know that we have these wonderful discussion questions that where you can download. Grace, do you want to tell them where they are, and then we can pull some of those? And I think we have a couple of questions as well, so I want to make sure we get to everything.
I will pop it in the chat again. I put it in at the beginning and it's in the event description, but I have a Google Drive folder of discussion guides for all 4 of the books, and you can download those as PDFs and keep it on you. And if you have a physical copy of Laura's book, those are also in there, but we got them in PDFs for you for your convenience.
Okay, great. So Catherine, just give us a snapshot of We All Want Impossible Things, and then I think Lainey and Grace are gonna pull up some questions and ask some questions.
Laura, I bet I'm right to speak for you that we're also, I would guess, really available for in-person book clubs. I love talking to people, as I know you do, because we have done events together. And it's really fun to be invited to a book club. It's very, to be in a room of people who have actually read your book, especially, not to pander, but the library book clubs, because it's so different. Like it really feels like a sort of cross section of a town. And I love that. And I was at a book club where somebody said, hey, Catherine, I have a question. What's your Enneagram number? And everyone said, you promised you weren't going to ask her that. And that was like my favorite book club thing ever. And she was like, I know I wasn't going to, but then I had to. Anyway, they diagnosed me with an Enneagram number of some sort. So always fun to go to book clubs, or to be zoomed into book clubs is great too. But We All Want Impossible Things. You mean, how did it come to get written?
Anything you want to tell people so that if they haven't read it, just to get sort of a little bit, scratch the surface a little bit, but not too much, because we want to.
It is like the main character. I also lost my best friend of 40-something years to ovarian cancer, and that experience, I could not really translate it into nonfiction. And weirdly, the closest I could get to accurately writing it was by fictionalizing part of it. And I'm not sure why that is. And I think that's why I'm an Enneagram 4 or whatever it was that I was. But so I think just that feeling of Laura, that you described, of really needing to write a book, whether or not it was going to sell. I think I had that same experience of I really had a story to tell that was very close to me. So that's what happened. I wrote it during the pandemic, and one of the characters in the book is the narrator's teenage daughter, who's my own personal favorite character. And while I was writing, my own teenage daughter was home from high school because of COVID. And in the morning, I would write all the really painful dying stuff. And in the afternoon, my daughter would just say all this crazy stuff to me, and I would just transcribe it into the manuscript. So that's why the book alternates between these really devastating scenes and then this really nutbag kid who has a lot of weird stuff to say.
So funny.
Anyway, love it. I love it.
So that's that.
Yeah. So that's why I think that's going back to the authenticity of it all. I mean, obviously you two you're so amazing, and you're so amazing together. So, you're writing what's close to your heart, which takes such bravery, really, and honesty. And I can't imagine, especially the hard parts. But it's wonderful that you both, you met each other and in October of 2023. And I just love feel free to talk to each other, because I feel like we're just kind of like sitting on the sidelines in the snug.
In the snug.
In the snug. We had thought, I forgot to mention that not that this is really very important, but I don't know. I need to push my point. I looked up the definition of a snug because some people thought snug was, didn't make much sense. But the British definition is a small, comfortable public room in a pub or inn, so everyone can drink.
This is
North American definition is a place to place something safely or cozily. So I was thinking, well, we're all sitting in our comfy chairs, warm and cozy with these wonderful authors, and we're placing these wonderful books safely into librarians' hands, because that's where they need to be, and that's where book clubs need to have them, because they really are so wonderful. And the themes that are throughout the books are everything from friendship to family to marriage to grief, elder care. I mean, it's really all there, and it's pretty wonderful. And I think it's so funny, Catherine, that you actually read a couple of 1 stars, because I do think that's actually hilarious that you.
Oh, I don't want to compete, but I have many. I could, brag about mine too. But I think one of the things that we met, Catherine and I met in October in Brattleboro, and we both felt like we literally wrote to the organizer of the festival. I think we said the same thing. They said to me, "You're going to do an event with Catherine Newman." I was like, "Oh my God, I won the lottery!" And I think you said the same thing. But I think one of the reasons why we worked so well together and why people read, I mean, it's why you want to connect. And I think especially in these times, the issues that we're writing about, they're not fancy, they're not other, they're all the stuff that we talk about with our friends or think about at night when we can't sleep and worry about. And what better way, than to have a reason. And I think it's probably the same for you if you do a reading or an event. If anyone shows up, they do come up to you afterwards, and they all have a story. I mean, when I was writing Animal Husbandry a million years ago, I was a book publicist for different parts of Random House, and my job was to take people to lunch, and I was quietly, secretly writing on the side because we didn't talk about the dual career thing at the time. But every now and then, someone would say, "Are you writing?" And yeah, what are you writing? Oh, it's about a woman who gets dumped. Before I could get the sentence out, my lunchmate would, "Oh my God, I have a story. I was dumped," and then they would tell me their story. They would cry, order another drink. We'd be there till 3:30. But it's that kind of thing where the issues that we're both writing about, as you said, marriage, kids, family. I mean, when I started to write Small World, I thought, oh, it'll just be a couple with these annoying neighbors upstairs. It'll be kind of a dark comedy. And then I was like, no, what if it's sisters? And then I was like, what if my sister moved back from California, where she deserted me years ago and left me here on the East Coast with our family? What if she moved back? What if we lived together? Oh my God, the hilarity, the misery and hilarity of that thing. And I think as the same thing with Cat, it's like the misery and hilarity go so well together, and everyone has the same combination of those elements, I think, in real life, and we just want to connect, hear other people's stories and tell our own.
Yeah, and then you don't feel so alone either.
Yeah.
Lainey, is there a question?
Yeah, there's several comments too, which I can read. Let's see. The first, so Jennifer Winbury asked, would you say that your characters are, she said, re-seeking their agency? I'll leave that to whoever wants to answer.
That's an interesting question. I think it was Virginia who said it's something, it is like your life telescopes. And so you're in the moment, like in separation anxiety, you're in the current moment. The marriage is just a mess. They're on the hook for a tuition payment at the Montessori school. They have to make a payment in 6 weeks or the kid has to leave school. She's wearing the dog. It's just, and in that current state, there's all the feelings of like, when her son was really young. I mean, this book opens where she's in the basement, basically going through his baby clothes. I mean, if anyone has kids and goes through those old clothes, you are instantly transported, like in a portal of like, you touch the gap, tie, oh, he vomited on oh, these were the socks. You have a sense of time just rushing and rushing back. And so I think all these books, especially for Small World too, is that sense of like, you're just going back and forth in time in your mind all the time, I think, with different versions of yourself. At least I am.
Catherine, what about you?
That was such a good answer, Laura. I loved it. Reseeking their agency. It's a really interesting question. I mean, because I do feel like women characters in parentheses, women in general. I mean, I do think there is something about writing from middle age that has a certain, I'll speak for me, although I have a feeling I'm also speaking for Laura, but that we've come to a point of a certain kind of fearlessness that I think does speak to a great kind of agency. That there's a scene in Sandwich where the main character is sitting cross-legged on the beach eating a tuna sandwich that's like blobbing on her leg, and she's scooping it up with a potato chip, and her daughter says like, wow, Ma, you're really living your best life. And I think there's this way that whatever way we have as women sort of moved as objects through the world, right, that especially women who go to bed with men, that this way that you see yourself as kind of always through the eyes of men, how do you look, how do you seem? I think we're writing characters who really don't care anymore about that. And so I think there is something really, these are a little bit liberation stories in that way, or stories about agency. I think all of these books actually are that.
I would just like to clarify that I heard age, not agency, so I answered a slightly different question. But
I might have heard it wrong too.
no, I think I misheard, but either way.
Yeah, either way.
Either way, good answers all around.
Yeah, it still applies. Very interesting. Oh,
Well, it's
Um,
interesting that you just said, like getting older, because someone asked about, they said, I'm middle-aged and find myself being less confident, which confounds me. And just like asking if you have any opinion on maybe why somebody getting older would lose confidence compared to these women in your books kind of learning throughout their arc, I guess.
Well, I think, there's so much coming at us on a daily basis to just suck the life and confidence out of us. And it is a struggle. I mean, I don't think, I'm 61 now, and I do have a sense now where I do not give a hoot. I just don't care. I don't, and it's the best feeling. And I didn't have it in my 20s, didn't have it in my 30s. And, yes, I'm horrified at my reflection in in a mirror. But I don't even care anymore about that. I really just love this time when, that sense of just not caring is really great. You can do your best work. You can write what you want. You can say what you want. And it's also a sense of like, I feel much kinder. In as much as I don't care, the flip side of that is also like I feel a real sense of like an overwhelming sense of wanting to be kind, because I feel like I've been through so much. Everyone I know has been through so much. So I think like the lack of confidence is like a blip on your way to this. I don't know how old the person is, but it's like you have to go through that dip, and then you will come out here, and you just get past that. You just don't care anymore about.
There's all those other things, Laura, that happen at mid-age where like we get dumped by our husbands, our kids are teenagers who hate us. Like there's a million kind of pitfalls between now and like, eating the tuna sandwich on the beach. I do feel like, and so it could be that it's just one of those moments, or the way that like you get suddenly like you have a new editor who's like 15 at a magazine where you've always written, stuff like that, which is really destabilizing.
You can't get arrested at Trader Joe's because the guy will not flirt with you or comment on what you just bought, but he did it to the person ahead of you, and he's going to do it to the person behind you, and you're like, oh, did you not like my naan? Were you not impressed with my choice?
Not impressed with your naan. That sense of becoming suddenly invisible, for me, it was like at first really alarming and then incredibly liberating. So I'm with you. I think it's a blip.
Exactly. Yep.
I was on the subway this morning, and a woman was wearing a bag, and there was a patch on it, and it said, "Empathy is rebellious," or rebellion. Empathy is rebellion. And I thought, what the hell does that mean? I thought, oh yeah, All right, I gotcha.
Yeah.
You just made me think of it. Lainey, Grace, what else do we have? We want to show the discussion questions because I think we should show those.
Yeah,
before
I
we get to
will.
anything else, 'cause-
I just wanted to say, like, I love these books all deal with middle-aged characters, but as someone who's like 20-ish years off from being middle-aged, I found there was something that I could grip onto in each book. Like with Sandwich, I don't know, I cry, I mean, I cry easily with books, but I found myself like tearing up hearing, you know, her talk about her kids on the beach. And I was like, oh my God, does like my mom think about that? Like when she taught me to swim, like in the lake, does she think about this? Like it really put my mom into perspective. And like with Small World, I was like, if my sisters and I had to live together again, which we haven't done since they were teenagers and they're much older than I am. So I was a child. I was like, I can't even imagine that. And I think these books are so beautiful because they deal with a certain age group, but they're really universal for everyone. And maybe book clubs are middle-age focused, but if you have some Gen Z people in your book club, these are great picks too.
Thanks, Grace.
Great to
Yeah.
hear.
And I will pull up those discussion guides for us right now. Let's see. Okay.
But one of the things I love about Catherine's books and what I try to do in my own is that exact what you just described of that, sitting cross-legged and eating the tuna sandwich and scooping. It's like so real. And now when I write, I feel like I'm very grounded in like, who are these are real people. And it's not dialogue. It's like, what would these people say to each other? And a lot of points during, especially with Small World, it was like, yeah, if I were writing this book when I was in my 30s or early 40s, it would be a very different book. I'd be trying to be super clever, like, okay, and what's going to happen? And there's a whole thing in Small World with the next door style poetry that, we all have small next door in our towns usually, and Joyce makes poems out of the listings and does it. But if I were had written this book 20 years ago, I would have had a whole subplot about something happening with the postings and next door. And it doesn't interest me now. It's more like, what are these sisters? What do they say to each other? They're real. And that's what I love about, especially in your last book, which is the scenes in hospice. I mean, if you've ever gone through that experience and I lost a close friend or both parent, whatever, you know exactly those milkshakes, and the guy with the guitar, and it's all so real and so moving. And yeah,
Absolutely. And I think
go ahead, Grace, you go.
I was just gonna say, I think like even just the discussion we're having right now shows you how great these are for book clubs. Let me pull these up for you. So we have Separation Anxieties Reading Group Guide. And there's tons of stuff here for you to chew on, as Virginia's been saying, giving us a beautiful picture of that. And then I have Small World right here. And these, again, are all available on this Google Drive for downloads. You can grab those. And then we got a discussion guide for Sandwich, which Catherine wrote up for us, which I love. It kind of gives like that beautiful humor that you have. And I love that like you wrote these because I think it comes through. And then I have one for We All Want Possible Things as well. So again, these are all available for download as PDFs.
Grace, just go back to, if you could open up We All Want Impossible Things for a second. I think I would like to just pull out a question or two from each one of these, just to sort of like number 3, if you were lying around.
Number 3.
Catherine, it's your question. Do you want to read it? And do you want to, I don't know. I just think that they elicit such thoughts,
If you were lying around with your best friend while she was dying, what do you imagine you would talk about? What would you want to be sure you'd said or done?
Well, doesn't get bigger than that.
Right. Yeah. I have to say, in We All Want Impossible Things, there was such great characters. I don't know, just sort of woven through the story and all the different people who are working at the hospice, and as you were just saying, all those things, those sights and those sounds and those smells or something like it, and it's just, I don't know. I thought that all of your books took real courage because you're scratching it, not scratching, you're beyond scratching. digging down deep and touching your own hearts and your memories to make them so relatable and just so I just so beautiful is really all I can think. But and I think I just, there's sadness in all of these books. There are moments of sadness, but make no mistake about it. There's, as you can see from the authors themselves, there are moments of great humor in all four of these books, which I think is really important to, people like, oh, I don't want to read a story about, a friend who's dying. It's not, you can only cry so much. And there's great humor in these books as well, without being disrespectful. You're laughing at stupid stuff because after a while, it is life. But I think it's important to say that.
Plus,
Let's just,
Laura and I
yeah.
are available to come and do a 2-person stand-up comedy routine about ghostwriting, which is what we ended up doing by mistake in Brattleboro. We ended up just cracking each other up on stage about all our ghostwriting experiences. So that's just a side note. If that's what you want us for, we're available.
It's funny, for years and years and years, I was always like, how can I crack the Hollywood, like the gravy train? Like, I'm writing books, but I want to get on that gravy train. It's a long time ago when there was a gravy train. It's not really a gravy train, but like, how can I, and now I'm like, how can I crack the book club scene? That's my goal. How do I get in on this great thing of the book clubs? Like, I'm invited every now and then, but like, I want in, because I also love book clubs, and I have been, probably not to as many as you have, but
I want to.
I want into that. Especially-
Listen, everybody, you heard it. If they can come physically in person, they will. If
Yep.
not, this is the next best thing. You've got a snug, make
Yeah.
one. Pour some brandy in a glass.
We'll do a New England tour.
Oh, that's a fabulous idea. We'll help.
Yeah.
So people, send us an email, write to us and let us know how we can make this happen, because you women are just absolutely wonderful, delightful to talk to. We could go on and on. I mean, we have a few minutes left. I don't want to take up, the time, but I feel like if there's anything else that you want to say, or want to show a few more discussion guides, just to make sure everybody is very clear. There are some wonderful, wonderful questions that jumpstart conversation here. Endless questions, really. So I turn it to Laura and Catherine. If there's anything else you want to say, or we can just,
I'm very delighted to have gotten to do this. That's it.
good. I'm glad. Wait, so we just showed a question from one of Catherine's books. Let's show a discussion question from one of Laura's books.
Yeah, will do. I'll pull that up. I just wanted to really quickly read this beautiful quote from our friend Barbara Jenko. She just said, "I feel like I am in the midst of a really great therapy group session. This is all so true and resonates so deeply. Thanks." So if you don't have a career in stand-up comedy, you can become group therapists.
Well, it's so funny
Wonderful.
because when Catherine read her question, I totally teared up. Like, just the question was just that question that she read from her guide was just, and that's what the best kind of
Yep.
friend groups, discussion groups, book club things are. Just, you're laughing and you're crying and you're comparing notes. Especially right now, there's so much pain in so many people, and there's so much humor. There is just so much humor, black humor and dark humor, and it is the thing that gets us through. And without that, and without the empathy from our friends, I mean, I know I wouldn't have survived much of the terrible years I had, without friends and without even the kindness of real strangers. Like, I remember when my parents were in hospice 2 different times, because once was just not enough. I had to do it twice. But the empathy the incredible kindness you got from strangers, it was like that's amazing too. And so I think these book clubs and library book clubs are just, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull up the Small World reading guide, and if there's a particular question you want to read, let me know.
They're so
Alright.
long. Who needed to have such long questions?
I really like
Jealous.
3 has a good one. It says siblings, especially sisters, are often experts at getting under each other's skin because they know exactly what buttons to push. How do Joyce's and Lydia's patterns from their childhood affect how they deal with the people upstairs?
So do you want me to give you just like a really short, quick answer? So
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that.
we lived in we've been renting in Cambridge for almost a decade now, and it's in a house and it's a beautiful street. And Sue Miller, the novelist, lives right across the street, like literally
Wow.
across. She just took in her trash cans. Um, that's what I mean. And she's great. And so we live in this house. There's the owners live in it, and then there's 2 rental units, and we were downstairs. And at a certain point, our wonderful neighbor upstairs, who we never saw, which is why she was so wonderful, we never saw her. And then in came these 2 people. I won't say what they did because it's in the book, but they were very annoying and noisy, and we couldn't figure out what the noise was. And long story short, when we figured it out, it was very annoying. But I thought, oh, if it's 2 sisters, like I knew that my sister, if I lived with my sister and there was a noisy situation going on upstairs where people were doing something upstairs, she at first would be like, oh yeah, it's very annoying. And then she would judge me and be like, why are you so annoyed? And she would want to go up and do the thing that they were doing. She would want to go up there and join them against me. I knew. So that was really fun to write, because it's like, how do you get your sister? You do the thing that they're annoyed by. You're just like, that's not annoying to me. I'm from California. Like, that's just, but so that's what I mean also about it being really real. If you stop thinking about these people as like made up characters, they're actually so real in your mind. When I'm writing them, even though the sister in the book is not my sister fully, and I am not fully Joyce, but there are pieces of me that are, and pieces that are her, and it was just a lot of fun to do.
Well, we can all have sisters and parents and friends and lovers, but it takes a special people, talented people like Laura and Catherine to take those relatable moments and exchanges and relationships and put it on paper where it connects with so many different people. So, I mean, we're so really, truly grateful to both of you for pulling from your own history and your experiences and your imagination, and then putting it into these beautiful books that just resonate. And that's what they do. They make you resonate, they make you laugh, they make you cry. And we're better for having known these characters. And I mean that. So thank you so much. Lainey, Grace, is there anybody else? That Barbara Jenko, by the way, was the director of collection development at the Brooklyn Public Library before she retired. And she's a brilliant and kind and wonderful person. And she actually interviewed Ari Melber on our show once. She said, "Can you get Ari Melber on your show?" And I said, "I don't know, but if we can, would you interview him?" And she went, "Humana, okay." And she did.
Oh, wow.
Thanks.
That's
Yeah, it
wonderful.
was really cool. You can catch it. Go to YouTube. Grace, do we have anything else to ask Catherine and Laura?
Because now I'm curious, someone mentioned it. Catherine, what's up with the pears behind you? Totally irrelevant to the book, but I just needed to ask because other people were curious, and I was like, wait a minute.
That is my pear collection. That's all it is. It's someone gave me a pear postcard like 30 years ago, and then I framed it and put it up, and now it's that. Now collections attract additions to themselves, I have learned.
Yeah, it's like when you get dumped by somebody who has a red Jeep, and then you start seeing red Jeeps everywhere. You get a pear postcard, and then there's pears everywhere.
Right.
True.
Okay, have we gotten to all of the comments?
I think so. I mean, we had some great stuff about book clubs, and people were in the chat saying, fun things about the book clubs. But
Okay.
somebody asked, I think the only other question, but we kind of talked about it, unless there's something you want to say, was how the characters stay with you when you're done. But I think they're always with us, right? Yeah. But if there's anything you want to add?
No, thank you though.
Yeah, I think that covers it then. Everybody loves this new snug format.
They
Good.
can have their own snug. They can have their own snug.
That's right.
Recreate this in your own library or online.
Yes. Or in your private bar.
Yes.
Long live the snug, as Catherine Newman said. Okay, so we thank you both. Can we show the jackets one more time? Grace is
1
doing
minute, sorry.
Okay.
It's just, I was on another slide and I'm.
that. Okay,
come back
there we
down.
are. So Laura Zigman, Separation Anxiety and Small World, now out in paperback. So both those books are available in paperback. We All Want Impossible Things, out in paperback, and Catherine's forthcoming book, Sandwich, which is coming out in hardcover. Glowing review from Ann Patchett. Wonderful stories. All 4 of these novels are just brilliant, and every wonderful thing we've said. I can't come up with any more adjectives. They're just so wonderful. So we thank you all so much for coming on. We do want to let you know that we have our next Writers to Watch is February 7th. Catherine will be on there talking about Sandwich, and also Rainbow Rowell, Wanda Morris, and Alan Murren will be coming from Ireland. Which is wonderful. They're all wonderful books. And then we're going to have on February 15th, Gallagher Fest, we're going to have Priya Krishna is going to demo a recipe from her forthcoming book, which is a book for adults but geared toward kids, and recipes that they can do along with their families. But there's lots of great stories interwoven throughout these recipes, and so that'll be from 2 to 2:30, and from 2:30 to 3:30, Amy, Grace, and I will be cooking something from our respective kitchens in Queens and Brooklyn, burning down our apartment building. So
Yeah, I hope that you're ready for the beautiful images at the beginning, because mine might not look as good, but we'll see.
all right, so that's that, and we can just go back
5-2.
to, oh, and then our buzz. What am I talking about? Lainey, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, we're doing our world famous book buzz. Yeah, where we've been shouting from the rooftops. We just have the link and I put it in the chat. So sign up and hear about upcoming books from us. It's exciting. Library Journal it's their webinar, and we'll be doing, I think, 75 minutes. So it'll be a lot of books. Come one, come all.
Yes, that's with Library Journal. That's our takeover for their webinar. So all of that information is in the chat, along with the discussion questions from the authors' books today. And Laura and Catherine, thank you so much for joining us on our inaugural Book Club Snug. We couldn't have had 2 better authors to jumpstart this. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you.
What a
Thank
treat.
you.
Thanks.
And don't forget, everyone, you want these authors to come to your book clubs, just let us know. Send us an email.
We're free. Not to beg, but I'm just saying we are free.
All
Thank you.
right. See you next time. Thanks all. And Laura and Catherine, if you can stay on for 1 sec. Thanks, everyone.